This recipe came from an idea I had when I was thinking about snickerdoodles, which I'm sure we all do from time to time, right? I wanted to make a cinnamon cookie that was more flavorful and more texturally diverse than the classic, and this is what I came up with. I'm not really sure what to call it yet, but they're really good, so let me show you how I did it. Just like most cookie recipes, this one's going to start by creaming some butter and sugar together. I've got 1 stick of room temperature butter and 150 grams of sugar going into the bowl of my stand mixer. You can, of course, do this by hand or with an electric beater, depending on what equipment you have, but either way, you're going to want to whip these together until the mixture becomes light and fluffy and the color of the butter becomes more pale, kind of like this. These changes are a result of all the air we just whipped in there, and that air is an important component when it comes to this cookie's final texture. So next, I'll add 1 egg and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. If you're using a stand mixer like me, you'll probably have to stop to scrape off the bowl and the whisk once or twice, but make sure you keep going until everything is evenly incorporated and that creamy, fluffy appearance returns. That's going to be it for the wet ingredients. Now on to the dry. In a separate bowl, I'm going to measure out 160 grams of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar, half a teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. I know it may be annoying to some people that I tend to switch between weight and volume measurements a lot, but I think for most things you only need weight precision when dealing with higher quantities of an ingredient. So I'll weigh my flour because there's a big margin of error if I tried to measure this amount by volume, but just a teaspoon, half a teaspoon of something, just eyeballing it will get you close enough. It's such a small amount that you just physically can't be far enough off for it to make a real difference. And unless you have a super precise scale, which I don't, it's not going to get you that much closer to your true desired amount anyways. That being said, if you're doing something like fermentation or curing meats, always go by your instruments. That kind of stuff involves food chemistry where small amounts actually matter. I'm just doing cookies today though, so close enough will be just fine. Anyways, with that tangent out of the way, let's get back on track here. I switched the whisk attachment out for the paddle attachment on my stand mixer, and now I'm adding my dry stuff to my wet stuff. Make sure to do this slowly and in installments so that you don't send your flour flying across the kitchen. Keep going until you've added all your dry stuff and just until you don't see any more streaks of flour. Too much mixing here will develop too much gluten and make your cookies tough, so do your best to keep it to a relative minimum if you can. That's going to be all for the cookie base. Now on to the next component, which is a crunchy streusel topping. When I was thinking about this recipe, I wanted to add something akin to what you get on top of the cinnamon crunch bagel from Panera, if you've ever had one of those. Not sure if what I ended up with is exactly that, but either way, it's real tasty, so I stuck with it. So, into a bowl, I'm combining 4 tablespoons of light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of demerara sugar, 2 tablespoons of regular white sugar, 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and finally 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Looks real good, I know. Go ahead and mix that up with a fork until everything is incorporated evenly, and make sure you smash up any big chunks of flour or sugar in there that you see. So now I'm going to take about 1/3 of my streusel and mix it into my cookie dough. I would say you can mix in up to half of it here, but there's a trade-off to consider. The more of this you mix into the dough, the softer the dough is going to be, and the more your cookies will spread during baking. This results in a chewier, fudgier texture, and I like that. But the more you mix in also means the fewer crunchy bits I have on top of my cookies, and I don't like that. So 1/3 of it seems to be a good compromise for me, but you can adjust as you see fit depending on what you're going for. Just stay somewhere in that ballpark so things don't get totally out of whack. I'm going to make 8 cookies today. They're going to be pretty big, but I like the variance in texture that this size results in. You can do smaller, but you may need to adjust your cooking time. Like I said before, these spread out quite a bit while they're baking, so I'm only going to do 4 at a time. After I roughly portion them, I'm going to throw them in the fridge for just 10 or 15 minutes, which will firm up the outside and make this step a lot cleaner and easier, which is the rolling and the shaping. I'm going to roll each of these into a ball and then smash them down until they're about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch thick. Then all that's left is to top each one with a generous amount of our streusel. It should be fairly crumbly, but try to break it up with your fingers as you put it down. Lots of small chunks are better than one big chunk. And if some gets on the tray, that's fine. You can push all that around the sides of the cookies and those bits will go extra crunchy. They may get a little dark and potentially burn, but to be honest, these cookies are going to be so sweet that a tiny bit of that burnt sugar bitterness is actually kind of nice. Or at least that's what I'm telling myself. Just think of it like you would the extra dark spots on the top of a creme brulee. So those are going to go into an oven preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 11 minutes. And while I wait on those, I'm going to go sicko mode and make some cream cheese frosting to go with these. So into my stand mixer goes 1/2 stick of butter and then 1 whole package or 8 ounces of full fat cream cheese. This is all room temperature, by the way. This would be hard to do if this stuff was straight from the fridge. I'm going to whip those together for a minute until it's looking smooth and creamy, and then I'm going to add the juice from half a lemon and work that in there. A lot of lemony cream cheese frosting recipes call for more lemon juice than this, or even the lemon zest, but for me today, I'm more after the extra acidity than the lemon flavor itself. So you can do all that if you want more lemon flavor. I'm just opting for something a little more subtle today. Now it's time for the sugar. Here, I have the contents of a 1 pound or 453 gram package of powdered sugar. For this today, I want 400 grams of sugar, so I'm just going to slowly add it a few spoonfuls at a time until I feel like I have about 50 grams left. You don't have to be precise here, anywhere in the reasonable vicinity of that 400 gram number, and it'll be fine. Once I get the sugar in, I like to continue to whip this on high speed for a couple minutes. This will work in some air and keep the texture really light and fluffy. By now, my cookies are done, and check out these beauties. You could be reasonable and drizzle over some of that icing, but let's be real, the superior move is the big frosting dip, so that's what I'm gonna do, and you can't stop me. These things are insane. Fluffy, chewy, and crunchy all at the same time, and the acidity of that frosting really does help balance out the sweetness of the whole deal. I think what I ended up making here are essentially coffee cake cookies, which is not really what I set out to do, but I'm happy to be here nonetheless. If you like what you see here and want to like and subscribe, it really helps me out. Also, for the true weirdos out there, I've started a Patreon where I post written, in-depth recipes for everything I do here. The link for that is in the description if you have any interest. Anyways, that's all for now. Thanks!